Welcome to the Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast. Today we'll be talking about what happens when you don't have the difficult conversations.
Are you a Catholic wife grappling with challenging in-laws? The Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast is your sanctuary for navigating the sometimes stormy seas of life with in-laws while being validated for what you've experienced. Join me, your host, Miriam Susan, a Catholic wife who's weathered nearly 3 decades of in-law drama, as we tackle the tough issues you're dealing with head on.
Hi, Miriam Susan, your host of the Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast. Welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about what happens when we don't have the difficult conversations. I've been seeing a lot of messages on Facebook very recently where women are just stuck. They are stuck in a difficult situation. They know the way out of this situation. They actually do. But it feels like a mountain. It feels like a battle they're not ready to fight. And that is having a difficult conversation. And I'm just going to cut to the chase. There's no way around a difficult conversation. There just isn't. I mean, I guess if you want to suffer the consequences of not having that difficult conversation, which is what we're going to be talking about today, then I guess you could. But when we think about the ramifications of not having that difficult conversation, it's pretty bad and things don't get better. So what am I referring to? Imagine if you are just one little fish in a pond and everybody else is your predator. You can't swim up to the other fish and say, please be nice to me, please respect me, and have them listen, because you're just the one little fish. And everybody is in that culture. They perhaps made that culture. So that's kind of how it is sometimes when we have a toxic family dynamic going on. We are that one little fish that just wants to be respected, that just wants a little bit of peace, that just wants to have her place in the fish tank and go about her life without really disturbing anybody else and without anybody else disturbing her. But what usually happens if you have that situation in a literal fish tank? If you have one fish that's getting picked on, the other fish are going to start picking on you too. And it ends up where that fish ends up dying. I've seen it. We've had very many fish burials in the fish tanks that we've had through the years because one little fish, it's usually a neon tetra. I don't know what it is about those fish. They're super cute. They're shiny. They have stripes. And they get picked on a lot by the other fish, especially if you have a beta. And in this situation, we're kind of the neon tetra, and our in-laws are kind of that male beta fish. Beautiful, showy, beautiful colors. They look amazing in the pet store. And then you get them home and they're just mean. And what happens when you don't say anything? I'm going to leave the aquatic realm for now and just talk about, what happens when we are in a high stress situation. We start to get sick, and we might not necessarily notice it at first. Maybe you're a little more tired. Maybe it's something like you're just more on edge. Maybe you're a little more stressed out. But there's a lot of other stuff going on, so you can't necessarily pin it all on your in-laws, right? I mean, if you have little kids, that's a lot. Having little kids, I know because I have 6. They're not little anymore, but I remember those times when it was basically go, 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 go from the moment my eyes opened in the morning till the moment I crashed in the bed at night. It was go, go, go. And there's not a lot of time to rest, to recoup, and to heal when you're in that situation. So you could look at your life around you. Maybe you have a job and maybe things at work are stressful. Maybe there is a little bit of a toxic environment at work. So you've got that stress. And then because you're on edge, because you're stressed, you're not really connecting with your husband either. So then you have marital stress on top of that. And maybe things with your extended family are not going well. Maybe there are health issues with a family member that you care deeply about. And That's more added stress. Maybe something's going on in your parish that you are involved in, and that's adding on to the stress. And so your in-laws are kind of just in the background or thrown into the mix, and you can't throw all the blame their way. And in a situation like that, they don't get all the blame either, right? So you start to feel stressed. You start to feel overwhelmed. You start to have parenting issues. You start to have marital issues. And then things ratchet up a notch. Maybe you're not feeling well and you talk with your husband and you decide, you know what, I am going to opt out of going to lunch at your family's house after Mass this Sunday. And then that brings a whole new wave of stress upon you because you don't feel like you can talk to your husband about what's going on because he still seems to be okay with how the relationship is with your in-laws. Or maybe he's not totally okay, but it's not really that bad because that's just how mom is. Or that's just how dad is. And so we just got to deal with it. Except that you're not dealing with it. And then things might escalate a little bit more. Maybe you start having headaches that you never had before. Maybe they become migraines. Maybe you have some fertility issues because of the stress. Maybe you start to need a nap every day because your hormones are starting to get out of whack. When you are in a constant state of stress, it becomes normal. I'm raising my hand over here. Hello, I'm the poster child of being super stressed and thinking it's completely normal. I've had multiple healthcare providers listen to my story about what's going on with my health, and they find out how many kids I have. They find out what's going on. They find out, my husband's work schedule, my schedule, and they say, "You're stressed." And I'm thinking, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm handling it." They're like, "Your labs say otherwise. Your body is saying otherwise." But because we've been in this state of stress for so long, we kind of overlook the fact that maybe we're gaining weight and it's not coming off like it used to. And maybe we're having issues with our digestion, or maybe we're having issues with falling asleep, or maybe our hair is falling out. All kinds of little signs. Maybe our cycles are irregular. All signs that our hormones are out of whack. And guess what stress does? Stress messes with your hormones. Something fierce. These are all signs. And all this stuff is going on. And there is a solution. And we have to talk about it. We have to have the hard conversations first with ourselves. First, we have to acknowledge, okay, this is not how I was feeling before I got married. Now, granted, there are life changes. I get it. But in spite of the state that my health is in right now, which is not the best, I know that the idea that as we age, our body just kind of goes downhill, I don't fully buy into that. Why? Because I have seen examples of other people who are well into their 70s and 80s who are living amazing lives, who are living as if they're in their 20s or 30s. So no, I don't buy the fact that, or this idea that is promoted as a fact, that our lives just go downhill after a certain age. I do understand how stress plays a role in deteriorating our lives and how we can very easily just think it's normal and that's just how it is. Oh, I'm not stressed now. You should see me when I'm really stressed. Well, that probably means when you're really, really stressed, things are really, really bad with whatever is going on in your hormones and in your body. So we avoid these conversations with our husbands about what is going on with our in-laws. I know I did for many years. Or I might bring it up and say something like, I just don't feel comfortable with your parents staying in our house. Of course, I didn't say that until, we'd been married about 20 years. Yeah, I'm a slow learner. So don't follow my example. But we have to have these difficult conversations. And what happens when we don't, when we live in this state of stress of being around our in-laws, especially if our in-laws are close by, especially if our in-laws are ones that come and visit for an extended period of time, are ones that we have to be in communication with on a regular basis, that conversation can be very, very hard. But what's your other option? Just smile and nod? Forgive and forget? Act like nothing's happening? When in reality, you're falling apart. And your kids are suffering because you're not the mom that God created you to be. Your marriage is suffering because if there's in-law problems, there's marriage problems. You can't be the wife that you want to be. You can't be the Catholic woman that you want to be because your mind is bombarded with thoughts of stress and everything that's going on. So I'm reading these posts on Facebook and I'm hearing women talking about crazy symptoms that are way beyond what I'm throwing out here today. And yet, they don't think they're ready to have this conversation. But I'm going to tell you right now, you don't want to wait till you're bedridden to have these conversations. You need to have them well before that. You don't need to have these conversations when one visit with your in-laws over a short weekend throws you into an adrenal crash that has you basically stuck in the bed with a migraine for 3 days, like happened to me. That's not the time to have the conversations. It might be that that's the only time that your husband really becomes aware of how the stress is affecting you. But I really highly encourage you to find a way, find the words that get through to your husband before it gets to that point so that you don't end up like I did. And now it's like a deep, deep hole that I have to claw my way out of to get my hormones back on track from living for so many years under so much stress. So we have to have these difficult conversations. And here's one thing I know for sure. You can do it. Your husband can do it. You absolutely can. Now, one of the reasons I heard from one woman was that she didn't want to do something because it would kill the joy of her children's grandparents. It would kill her joy to not see the grandkids. And I get it. So many of us are raised with this assumption that we must put everybody else's needs before ours. That we have to die to self in order to show that we love somebody else. But Jesus isn't asking us to die for other people just to show them that we love them, especially if you are doing other things to show kindness to these other people. He's not asking us to sacrifice ourselves on the altar of our family members' sin and selfishness and toxicity just because they might get a little upset. If you have to tell your in-laws, no, my kids are not going to spend the night with you this weekend, and that seems to rob them of some joy, that's not on you. That's on them. They're adults. They can handle it. They can handle you telling them no. Another thing I've seen a lot recently is women feeling like they have to make these long explanations. They have to justify any little line that they draw in the sand. And you don't have to. If you're talking to another adult, you can just say, no, I almost said I'm sorry. Don't say I'm sorry if you're not sorry. That's a hard habit to break. But you could say, no, that weekend doesn't work for us, and leave it at that. Even if you have no other plans that weekend. Shocking. Even if your plans that weekend are to just stay at home and clean out your closet, or stay at home and have a movie night with the kids, or pizza picnic like we love to have. Those are legitimate reasons to say no to an invitation you don't want to accept. So how do you start having these hard conversations when you don't feel like you're strong enough to do it? I'm going to let you borrow my courage and my faith in you. I know you can do it. You can stand up to people and tell them no. If somebody approaches you in the parking lot and you've got your kids with you and you're heading into the store and the person looks a little shifty, or maybe you've had somebody come up to you at the gas station and they're asking just for $1 for some gas. You can tell them no if you feel like something is weird, something is not quite right, you feel a little bit unsafe. You can tell them no. So why can't you tell your in-laws no? Because of the backlash? That's on them. Because of how they pout and try to make you feel guilty? That's on them. You can tell people no. So why do your in-laws get a pass? Why do toxic family members get a pass? Just tell them it doesn't work out. That's not going to work for you. And if they ask for any reasons why, just repeat it. Yeah, that's not going to work for us. We've got something else going on. And leave it at that. When you open the door to people who are toxic and who are used to getting you to explain and give a reason and justify why you can't do something, guess what? They opened the door and you walked right in to let them manipulate you. Because toxic people love to hear your explanations. They love to hear how your kids can't come over because they've got early morning soccer practice. Oh, okay, well, that's perfect because I can take them to soccer practice. I would love to take and see my grandkids practice. See? Or if you say, oh, she doesn't sleep well by herself in a strange house. Oh, that's okay. She can just snuggle up in the bed with me. See? Toxic people can be so sneaky. And you walk right into their trap when you start to justify your no. That's what happens. So I encourage you to find something you can do within this next week, some little way that you can say no, and don't apologize for it. Don't give a justification for it. Just say, yeah, that's not going to work. If grandma tries to call and wants to do a video chat, oh, yeah, that's not going to work for us. That's it. That's it. Your in-laws call, oh, we want to bring the kids to the ice cream shop. Oh, yeah, that's not going to work for us tonight. And leave it at that. Oh, but we really want to take them. There's a new ice cream shop that opened up. We'd love to take the kids. Yeah, that's not going to work for us tonight. Maybe some other time. If you really mean it. If you really mean that there might be another time. Although my son this week was explaining to a lady that my maybe is usually no. So if I say maybe some other time, it's pretty much a no. Yeah, you can do it. You absolutely can. If you can say no to somebody that's a little bit creepy that comes up to you begging for money at the gas station, you have the ability to say no. You just need to extend it to these people that you know and that you know might react poorly, and then totally detach yourself from their response. Just like if your in-laws said, if you wanted to visit them on a certain weekend, let's say you wanted to visit them for July 4th weekend, and they said, oh, that doesn't work for us. You shouldn't take it personally. It just doesn't work for them. You just let it go. Okay, well, we'll plan it for another time. See how easy that is? I know it's not that easy. I know it's not that easy when you're dealing with a toxic person, but it can be. And if you don't do something to start changing the situation and start reclaiming your own autonomy, any of these little health issues that I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, they're not going to go away. You have to have time and space away from toxic people to begin to heal. My husband and I have not been able to heal when we were deep in the thick of the relationship with his parents. It was not possible because after every single visit was the anticipation of the next one. And when we finally cut off contact, they were living a couple states away. When we were living within an hour of them, it was relentless. That's when my husband started losing clumps of hair from the stress. That's when my health took a serious nosedive because we couldn't get away from it. Then when we moved away to another state, we did have some breathing room. But then it was the stress of, they're going to come to visit and spend the night in our house. Or we're going to go visit and spend the night in their house. So if that's the best you can do at this point, to just take a break, maybe if you're seeing them every week, space it out to 2 weeks. If you see them every month, space it out to every 6 weeks. Whatever you can do to give yourself room to heal, but you're going to have a tough conversation. You're going to have a conversation with your husband about what's going on. And please feel free to use me as an example. Use me as your excuse. Husbands, if you're listening, you don't want your wife to get to the point that I did. It was awful. We have spent thousands upon thousands of dollars just to try to get my health back on track from living under such extreme stress for so stinking long. Don't do this to your wife. It's not going to get better unless things change. So, remember, this is scary. This is hard. I know it is, but I know that you can do it. I am giving you full permission to borrow the courage that I have in you to do it and to start reclaiming your autonomy, because your body, your health, your children, your marriage desperately need you to do it. God bless you. Go in peace.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Catholic Wives Desiring Peace podcast. I have a free gift for you that I would love for you to get. It is my free scripts for toxic in-laws. It's a little PDF that you can use to give you some examples of how to speak to your in-laws about certain issues. I'd love to give it to you absolutely free. So if you head to desiringpeace.com/gift, it will be there waiting for you. Just enter your name and email so you can start using it for inspiration on how to talk with your toxic in-laws. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Go to desiringpeace.com/gift to claim your gift now. Disclaimer. All content and information on this podcast and our website, including our programs, products, and or services, is for information and educational purposes only and does not constitute professional medical, psychiatric, or mental health advice of any kind, and does not establish any kind of professional client relationship by your listening to this podcast or use of my website. A professional client relationship with you is only formed after we have expressly entered into a written agreement with you that you have signed, including our fee structure and other terms to work with you in a specific matter. Although we strive to provide accurate general information, the information presented here is not a substitute for any kind of professional advice, and you should not rely solely on this information. Always consult a professional in the area for your particular needs and circumstances prior to making any professional, medical, or mental health related decisions.